Hey, brothers and sisters. Sorry that you can't see my face. My wife made me promise that if I shared my testimony, I would have to block the camera in order to protect her and my privacy. So today I just wanted to share several experiences that I've had with the supernatural, as well as some interesting dreams that I had. And I really feel that God is impressing me upon the importance of sharing my testimony. But first, I need to give you a very short background about me. So I was raised in a Christian household. When I was young, I always prayed to Jesus. I really believed in him and everything. But as I grew up, I decided I wanted to become a doctor. And I basically, had to study a lot of science in order to pursue that path. And I basically, over time, I became agnostic. So I kind of lost my faith as I learned about evolution and other things like that. So, yeah. I went to college, studied, like I said, pre-med, graduated, and then after college, I decided to take a couple gap years, and I basically worked at this place. Again, I don't really want to say where I worked to, kind of protect people's privacy and things, but at this job, I suffered greatly. So basically, you could probably call it like workplace harassment or um, you know, I don't know exactly what you would call it, but basically, I would make like some mistakes on the job, and people would get like really angry at me. And this was like high pressure work, so like every little detail mattered, and I was called things like lazy, stupid, and even at one point I remember being called a failure at life. Now they didn't always say those things to my face, but I overheard them, and it made me really, really depressed. And at one point, I even contemplated suicide. However, uh, so I so I quit the job after a while. Like this lasted for a couple months, and I quit them. And one day, I decided to forgive them after I saw the movie The Son of God. So I highly recommend this movie. It's really good. But after I saw it, I thought to myself, what would Jesus want me to do in this situation? And I thought, oh, he'd want me to forgive them. And the very next day after I forgave them, I had my first experience with the supernatural. So for this reason, I think forgiveness is very important. And this happened about 5 to 6 years ago. And I should also say that, I'd always wanted to have an experience with something supernatural growing up. I would watch shows like Ghost Hunters and, things like that. And I would always say like, oh, it'd be really cool if the supernatural was real, but I never like had it. I always wanted to have an experience, but like I never really had one until this happened. Okay, so jumping into my first experience, it's I call my demon experience. So at this time, I was staying at my friend Henry's house, and we basically were just hanging out like a lot. Sometimes I alternated to my parents' house, but at the time I was staying at his house. And one day, after, like I said, after I forgave those people, um, I felt this really strange energy. So it's this hard feeling to describe. Like I get this like weird feeling. Like even today, I sometimes get it. It's kind of like a sixth sense almost, but it's just like this very strange feeling, and it feels like an energy to me. And I asked Henry, I was like, "Can you feel that?" And he actually said he could feel it too. And we kind of were feeling this energy like move around the room, so it would like come and go. And that night we went to sleep, and then the next day, I woke up and I started feeling this energy again. And I started doing something that like now I believe like you definitely shouldn't do, which is I started talking to the energy, which I believe was like an entity, like a spirit. And I asked it if it wanted me to leave, can you move this pencil that was just sitting on the table? And right after I asked it, this pencil shifted position on its own. It wasn't like a huge movement, but it was enough that like I definitely saw the pencil move by itself. And I can't really think of any explanation for how that happened. There was no breeze in the room. There was no earthquake, like I didn't feel any like shaking or anything. So my only, thought was this entity, this thing, this spirit, like actually moved this pencil. So I was freaked out and I decided to leave. And I went back to my parents' house. When I got to my parents' house, I felt the same energy. So whatever it was that was at Henry's house had followed me to my parents. That night, I started playing this religious music to try to kind of scare it off. I thought, like, if I play like some hymns and things like that, like maybe this entity will leave me alone. But this only seemed to make it worse. So basically, what started happening is I would feel this energy come to me, and then the video would pause, and then the energy would leave, and the video would start playing again. And this like kept happening for about half an hour. Okay. Then the energy came and it got really strong. So it got like exponentially stronger. And in front of me, maybe about like 7 or 8 feet away, I saw this demonic figure appear. And it was about 5 or 6 feet tall, black and red in color. It was absolutely terrifying. It was humanoid. It had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but it disappeared relatively quickly. So, it just kind of appeared, and then like a second later, it was gone. So I didn't get to see if it had other features, like if it had horns or anything like that. After it disappeared, I could tell that it was still coming closer because the energy kept getting stronger. Then it basically exhaled in my face, kind of like a bull about to charge. Like, at this point, I screamed. I was like, "Get out of my house!" And I just screamed at the top of my lungs. And this was, the most terrifying moment of my life. But interestingly, it was actually also the most exciting because I was literally face to face with the supernatural. So, yeah. Okay. Then the next thing that happened was I actually saw like a face kind of appear in the air. Like it was like it wasn't like a crystal clear face, but there was like an image like of like a face that I kind of saw. And then after I screamed and I saw that, the energy kind of receded, so it backed away. And then I saw a white ball of light appear in the corner of the room. Um, People describe seeing these like orbs and taking these pictures. If you're familiar with like, you know, the supernatural and people who like go ghost hunting and stuff. Not saying that I feel like anyone should be doing that, but you know what I mean. So I saw this orb about the size of a soccer ball, and it was white, glowing light, and it appeared, and then it like slowly faded away. And part of it was like it kind of looked like a crescent moon. Also, like part of the circle, the orb was like more brightly lit than the rest of it. So it was really cool looking. And I like to think that this was my guardian angel watching over to me. So yeah. And that's basically the end of my demon experience. Okay. Several months later, I had what's called my angel experience. So at this point, I was working at a new job at a hospital. And one night I was sitting in the lobby of the hospital waiting for my shift to start. And it was completely deserted since I basically was working these night shifts and it was around 11 o'clock. As I sat there, I was thinking about God. And this wasn't completely uncommon after I had the demon experience. I started researching a lot about like near-death experiences. At this point, I had officially converted back to Christianity. So basically, I was back in thinking about God a lot. And as I sat there, it was almost as if a question popped into my head. The first question that popped into my head was, what should you do in any situation? And I non-verbally thought in my head, so I didn't say anything out loud. I said that you should do the will of God. Then a second question came and asked, what if you don't know what the will of God is? Then I responded non-verbally again, You should do whatever you think will do the most good for the world. Okay. Right after that, an elderly African American man walked up to me and he said, "Do you know how many thousands of people don't do that? They always see something wrong in doing what's right." And after that, he walked off, and basically, I didn't see him again. I didn't like see him disappear, but I was kind of stunned, so I didn't follow him or anything. And after a couple minutes of just sitting there stunned, I got up, looked around, and I didn't see him anywhere. So personally, I believe that this must have been an angel because he literally read my mind. And I don't have any other explanation for, how that's possible. Okay. So those are my two main experiences, but I've had a number of interesting dreams I also wanted to share with you today. The first dream happened several years later in 2017. So this was around the time that Hurricanes Harvey and Irma hit the United States, and there was also a lot of wildfires going on. In this dream, I saw many hurricanes ravaging the United States. So basically, I like saw this map of the United States, and I saw like all these different hurricanes like all over the U.S. And I heard someone speak, and he said, "The plagues are here." And I believe that this was God's voice. And I think this is relevant today because we have this coronavirus, and I personally think that this is the second major plague that this dream spoke of. So the first plague was Hurricane Irma, Harvey, the wildfires, and now we have the coronavirus. And personally, I think that these quote unquote plagues are going to continue into the future. So I think in the future we can expect to see more and more, like of these like major disasters happening. Because personally, I think that we're in, the kind of the time of tribulation. I think we're in the end times, and I think we can expect these terrible things to keep happening. I think the Bible kind of describes it like a woman going through labor pains. So, like over time, the labor pains get worse and worse, and they get closer and closer together in frequency. So that's kind of what I think is going to happen. Um, and more recently, I had a few more dreams. So, in one dream that happened maybe about a month ago, I was fighting these skeletal demonic looking creatures. And there were many of these creatures, and they kind of reminded me of the flood from the video game Halo, although they were much worse. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that video game, but there are these, nasty creatures. They kind of look like zombies almost. They're like pale colored, and the ones in my dream were more, like I said, they were more like skeletal. So they had like bones protruding almost, and they looked like just nasty, horrible creatures. And in the dream, I kicked one of these creatures over, but when I did that, several other smaller ones kind of jumped out of it. And I remember in the dream, I was part of this team that was sent to kill these creatures. And also, we were underground in the dream, kind of in a sort of cavern system. Okay. The next dream I had happened a few nights ago. In the dream, I was lying in my bed next to my wife. And in the dream, she got up and walked down the hallway towards the garage, and I got up and followed her. I noticed that this was a lucid dream. Um, so basically, I realized I was dreaming in the dream, and I could kind of control my actions. So, if you ever have a lucid dream, like if you think something, like you kind of like go there and you like follow. So I was like kind of like walking down the hallway almost. Like in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna walk down the hallway, and like it was happening as I was thinking it. So basically, then we got to the garage, and I saw that my wife was stuck in the car. So she couldn't get out, and she was kind of banging on the window. And I went over to open the door for her. And when I did this, something weird happened. So my wife actually disappeared, and the door that I opened actually led to the inside of a bus. And I heard a voice telling me to get in. So I did, and the door shut behind me. There were several other people in the bus, and the bus then started driving, and I heard people talking. One of them said, "Why is he here?" And another said, "I don't know." And as we were driving by, I looked outside the bus window and I saw two interesting things. The first was a sign that said, "Heaven is real," and the second was a lamb that was slain, which I knew was a symbol for Jesus Christ. And after I thought this, after I saw this, I thought, okay, I've had enough of this dream. Is I started getting scared that this bus might actually be taking my soul away from my physical body. So that freaked me out. So I knew I had to get off the bus, so I asked to get off, but someone said, "You can't get off here." And then I just went ahead and I opened the door to the bus anyway, and I jumped out even though we were still moving. I knew this wouldn't actually hurt because, like I said, I realized I was dreaming, and I was like, "Well, you can't get hurt in a dream, so I'll be fine." And as I landed off the bus, I looked around, and I was kind of in a sort of city. And then I decided, okay, it's time to wake up. So I started shaking my head, and this woke me up out of the dream. So that was a pretty cool one. Um, 2 nights ago, I actually had quite an interesting night. I actually had three dreams all in the same night. In the first dream, I was talking to my dad, and at the beginning of the dream, I was worried because I couldn't read my phone anymore. So I just remember looking at my cell phone and like seeing these like big numbers and letters and not being able to like comprehend what it meant. So that was just kind of like a weird start to the dream. But then I went to sleep in the dream. So this was kind of like in the movie Inception where you have dreams within dreams. And in this quote unquote inner dream, I started to feel my soul get pulled out of my physical body, feet first. So I was being like pulled, and I started moving horizontally down what seemed like a tunnel with white light coming out of the tunnel. So, people who have these near death experiences, they talk about going through this tunnel. So I wonder if it was kind of like the same tunnel that they see. But I just remember seeing this white light, and the walls of the tunnel were like a bluish color. It was kind of like going down a slide, but as I mentioned, the direction of motion was horizontal instead of downward. And I started moving faster and faster through the tunnel. There was music playing, and I knew that I had never heard this song before. So this was an unfamiliar song to me, and the music had a certain message to it, although I can't remember the exact words. The gist of the message was to just let go, relax, and go with the flow. Then I thought of something I did that would have been considered a quote unquote sin. So I was just like, I don't know why this came to my mind, but I just like thought of this like bad thing that I did. And I got scared because, I guess I thought that like, okay, well, if my soul leaves my body and I get judged, then like, I might go to hell or something. And this actually stopped my movement. So just thinking this thought about this thing that I did actually stopped me from moving down the tunnel. And then I woke up from that dream. And, I just want to say, like, it really did feel like I was being transported to another realm. I'm just not sure which way I was headed, like if I was headed towards heaven or if I was headed towards hell or, what. And when I woke up, I was actually shaking a lot. So, my physical body was, shaking. Okay. In the second dream, I also knew that I was dreaming. So it was another of these quote unquote lucid dreams. And I decided that, I wanted to visit hell. Go figure. I don't know why I decided this, but I was like, I'm just going to go visit hell. And I started descending from the bed that I was lying in. And I remember falling through my bed and then going through the ground. And once I was underground, I saw these caverns that I knew was hell. So it was like, again, it was like kind of like a cave system, kind of like in the previous dream. But yeah. And as I was descending through these different layers, on each of the layers of hell that I saw these demons. So, there were these different floors of hell, and on each one, I saw these demonic creatures. Some were quite big, others were about the size of a person. One big one that I saw was kind of snake-like. I didn't actually see any human beings, just these demons. And the demons were speaking, and they were planning on who they were going to, quote unquote follow. And one said that it was going to follow me. Um, then, I got to like the third layer down, I think it was, and I was kind of exploring. And I remember looking at a rock for some reason, and then I woke up from that lucid dream. So I think this dream was kind of interesting because I think it shows how demons like talk about us and they actually like plan their attacks on us and who they're going to like go after and follow. Um, yeah. Okay. And then in the last dream I'm going to share with you today, basically, I was sleeping in the dream. So it was another dream within a dream. And in this inner dream, it began by me seeing an old friend from high school who was on stage being given an award. So I just saw him, he was on stage, and they were putting this award over his neck. Then I woke up from that dream, but I was, again, I was still dreaming. And I was laying on my bed in the dream, and I felt the presence of a demon that I believe was Satan himself. Surprisingly, I wasn't really scared of him, but I could tell that he wanted me to wake up completely. Um, and it was at this point that I realized I was dreaming, and Satan like wanted me to wake up for some reason. So, because I've been dealing with like, in my opinion, like demonic oppression for a while, like I have this mindset like to confront demons and like resist them. So in the dream, I thought, no, I'm not going to wake myself up, and you can't make me. That was kind of my attitude. Like, I'm going to stick in this dream because you want me to wake up, so I'm going to do the opposite of what you want. Because, Satan just, he really makes me mad. And, I could feel that Satan was grabbing me by the legs. And although I didn't actually see him because I was looking in a different direction, he started pushing me through a wall head first. So I don't know if my spirit was in my body or if my spirit was out of my body, but I could like pass through like matter. So my head was passing through this wall. And as my head passed through the wall, I looked downward into this huge cavern and that it had lava at the bottom. And at this point, I got really, really terrified. And I tried to wake myself up because I felt like if I stayed in the dream, I would be cast into this lake of lava. So, this was almost as terrifying as when I actually saw the demon in real life. Um, yeah, because like I literally felt like I'm gonna be stuck here. I'm gonna be stuck here. Um, and yeah, luckily that feeling only lasted a couple of seconds, and I was actually able to wake myself up. And this dream, I believe, actually had a special meaning. But before I say what that meaning is, I have to give you some background about myself and my life. So, as I previously mentioned, when I was growing up, I was Christian, and then I kind of fell away from my faith. And the reason why I fell away from my faith is because I had many friends around me who weren't Christian. And when I heard things like only Christians make it to heaven, I got sad and worried about my non-Christian friends. Like because I didn't want them to go to hell. And I didn't think this was fair because I thought, well, they're good people. Like I know my friends, like I think they're good people. And I thought to myself at the time, I'd rather be in hell with my friends than in heaven with a God who punishes people simply for not believing in him. Okay, so now for the meaning of the dream. So at the beginning of the dream, my friend who was on stage was one of the same friends I was thinking about when I was younger, and I thought about God. So, he actually is Hindu, and a bunch of my friends were Hindu, and he is who I was thinking about. And I knew that the award he was being given meant he had the spirit of pride, which, I now believe is something that we need to try to overcome, just like all other types of sins. And I guess this means that, even my friends who I thought were great people, they have their own set of sins that they need to overcome, as we all do in this life. So, um, yeah. Uh, and then after I woke up, I also got the feeling that this dream was telling me that although we all have free will and we can make our own decisions, like if we believe in Jesus and God, I could be held responsible if I don't make my best efforts to help my friends and family find Jesus. So before this dream, I was actually wondering and praying, like if I should share my experiences with, other people. And I kind of feel like this dream, answered my questions. It's almost as if God, kind of lit a fire under my butt to, share this testimony, like figuratively and, literally with seeing this lake of lava. Okay, so that basically wraps up my experiences and dreams to date. I just want to end with saying that if any of my experiences scared you, I hope you remember that Jesus Christ is the answer. He died for our sins, so that we may be forgiven, and all we have to do is repent and believe that He rose from the dead, and we can have salvation. If I have any more experiences or dreams in the future that I feel like God is leading me to share, I'll post another video. Okay, thank you guys, and God bless.